Hello, I'm Frances Bell, formerly of Salford Business School, now retired and enjoying more time for gardening and crafting. I also find time for voluntary work, including working with and enjoying the FemEdTech network and the quilt. I'm sorry I can't be with you, I'll be asleep, but the other speakers are all involved with FemEdTech and or the quilt, so can comment and maybe answer your questions. The bit.ly link at the bottom of the slide is to a G doc with additional resources and two short scripts for doing the website walkthroughs that I've done using screenshots here for technical reasons. Here's a quick look at what we'll do. I'll do a quick introduction to the network, a bit of history, a tour of the website, talk a bit about the splots, the quilt project, a visual tour of the digital quilt, and some last thoughts and questions that you might like to discuss when I'm not there, and maybe I'll see them in the recording. So this is how we introduce ourselves at the website. FemEdTech emerged from a self-funded social gathering of women working in UKHE in spring 2016. After much discussion, a website and Twitter account and hashtag were launched to support faster and slower conversations. It turned out that the website wasn't sustainable because of the admin associated with user accounts and organising who was going to post. FemEdTech was reinvigorated by shared curation on Twitter, and at OER 19 we launched our second, more sustainable website. On Twitter, you can find us at FemEdTech and #FemEdTech, and head over to our open space website to find out more, and that's at http://femedtech.net. At FemEdTech, we wanted to support each other and to reach out beyond our starting group. Our name FemEdTech points to three important threads: feminism, whose theories can speak so much to our lived experiences; education, the domain in which most of us work or have worked, and a site of flux; and technology, yes, it's a little bit broken, that offers so much but brings its own problems and challenges. Now I'm going to take you for a walk through the FemEdTech Open Space website. But as I said, if you look at the resources document, you'll find some tips to do that yourself, and it'll probably be better than the way I'm doing it with screenshots. So here's our FemEdTech homepage, where we say who we are, and we attribute those who've helped us, like Alan Levine and Reclaim Hosting, our sponsors for the website. And you can find out where to go from there. Look at the menu options along the top, and there's plenty to explore, and I'm going to explain a little bit of it now. So a really good place to start before you think about contributing writings is to go and see what's already been published at femedtech.net. And I've got a link here to what you see if you get to the stories page. There are 4 pages of links to stories, and you can see what the most recent one is, and right back to the beginning to what other stories are there. They're often used to go with our projects, or people can just say something that they want to say. We've had some wonderful posts shared in that way. If you want to make a post, a writing, then you click write on the menu options, and it pulls up a form. You don't need to create an account. You don't even have to give your name. But if you want to give your Twitter handle, it can be, it helps promote it. And it's very, very easy to add content to here, we would ask you that you go and check the code of conduct before you contribute, because all posts will be moderated, and you can get the chance to change them if you choose that option. But if you want to post anonymously, you really do need to make sure that it complies with the code of conduct before you do that. And at this point, I just wanted to leave this information with you about the Splot True Writer theme that allowed us to create this open space that we've got. And we were really keen that that it would be equitable, accessible, and inclusive, and that participants could contribute anonymously if they choose, because we do realize that these power dynamics exist in the open community. They aren't always spoken about openly, but they're certainly there. So we're offering this facility, and we know you won't abuse it. From across the globe, I think there was an element of fear of missing out, and more promised contributions were registered, many arriving after the deadline. The quilt was assembled in February in Macclesfield, just as COVID reached many of the contributors' countries and our lives changed. So what happened next? We saw things change rapidly but differently in different countries. OER 20 was no longer going to be a face-to-face conference and went online. That was a big disappointment, but luckily we'd always planned for the digital quilt, and its site was launched in January 2020 at quilt.femedtech.net/quilt. We think that the digital quilt was influential in encouraging the influx of contributions, but it also became more important after we lost the chance to meet up, to see the material quilts. We had a 30-minute session at OER 20 with approximately 100 participants, and that was an emotional session that's very difficult to explain if you didn't attend it. And I put a link to the session description that includes the video if anybody's got half an hour to spare to watch it. That was something, I tell you. So let's walk through the FemEdTech digital quilt now and see what we can see. First of all, we've got the images of the squares submitted, which we photographed in Macclesfield as they all arrived, so that we could be sharing them and would have them even if people didn't upload their own images. So here's the Flickr album page, and you can see the first two images that we've got there. One's crocheted from Chrissy Naranci, and Pauline Ridley, I think, was this one with the hands. It's another lovely square. They're all really lovely. This square is from New Zealand. Elsa Haxel made this square, and it has a Maori poem with an English translation with a relevant appliqued image at the centre. It's a really beautiful square. And here's a topical one for this talk. On the left is one of Sarah Lambert's squares, and the other one on the right is from North America. It's commemorating Indigenous women who are murdered or missing. So we'll have a little tour of the Digital Quilt homepage now. The Digital Quilt site was made by Anne-Marie Scott, very, very talented person. I don't know, I could never have managed it without her. She did the most wonderful technological wizardry, and it's a really good website, and I do encourage you to go and have a look at it. So it was always our intention to have a digital version of the quilt, and it turned out to be absolutely crucial in the event because we didn't have the material quilt at the online conference. That was going to be at the face-to-face conference. So that's the opening there. And Anne-Marie made this wonderful slider, which has got all the 4 quilts in one slot. And as you slide across from one to the other, you see each of the 4 quilts in turn. It's worth saying something at this point about the fact that we ended up with 4 quilts, and we decided that to use all the squares in one quilt, we would have ended up with something that was so huge and heavy we couldn't have shared it the um, with people across the world. And so it was much more flexible to have 4 quilts, and we've made them so that they'll clip together. And also, if in the future anybody else wants to contribute by making their own quilt, if they follow our dimensions, then any future quilts can clip together with any past quilts. And we used the idea of having backpack clips to clip them together. We're also going to need a little bit of Velcro to make that happen. This, on the digital quilt site, these clickable links are the little eyes that appear on the squares. And if you look at the one in the top right hand corner of this quilt, it's done by Wendy Tallio. So you know, she's here to tell you all about it if you want to hear more about it. And if you don't manage that, then what you could also do is you click on that link, is you get to an image and Wendy's story of her quilt. And believe you me, the stories of the quilts, not all of them, of the patches, not all of them have been uploaded, but there are some absolutely fascinating stories there. So this is my last thought. A quilt that was supposed to be completed and displayed at OER 20 in London in April 2020 became 4 quilts in a box in my home, still in the box in my home because of the pandemic. And through the digital quilt website and the social media connection, we achieved these connections that that enabled the things that people could see, the digital quilt, and the things that they couldn't see because it was in my home, the material quilt. And I think that was probably in large part because people had either participated in creating squares or had watched as other people were doing it. And I think that these offered us a symbol of hope during COVID-19. So I'm going to leave you with a question. How can the digital and material connections complement and reinforce each other? And what can we learn from this for online pivoted education in general? And I'd just like to tell you a little story about something that happened with a WhatsApp group that I was in during the most recent lockdown. And a friend of mine wanted to create a quilt for her newly born grandson, and she liked the one that I'd done, and I sent her the pattern, and we talked about getting fabrics, and I had this really inspirational idea. The baby quilt that I had made for my grandson a few years ago was just in a bedroom upstairs. Nobody had touched it for months, so I was able to drop it off at my friend's house, and she had this sort of material quilt in front of her when she was trying to follow my instructions on the WhatsApp group. And I think I got that idea from our experience after OER 20 last year. So here are our acknowledgements to some of the people who helped, and Thanks to all of those.